Hello and welcome to the Ocean News Podcast, an audio series taking you through the biggest headlines and the breaking news stories from the Oceanographic newsroom. I'm Rob Hutchins, news editor here at Oceanographic magazine, and in this episode I'll be leading us on a deeper dive into the one story occupying everyone's minds right now, the unfolding events of the tragic collision in the North Sea. Morning has broken with a clearer view on the events surrounding the incident that occurred earlier this week when a US-chartered oil tanker collided with a Portuguese-flagged cargo ship in the North Sea, just off the coast of Hull. Within the first few critical hours of the event unfolding, fears were triggered over the vast and damaging impact the resultant oil spillage could have on the environment. Messages were initially unclear of exactly what had spilled, with reports that the cargo ship in question could have been transporting sodium cyanide. As the picture becomes clearer 2 days in, however, new reports have been issued in a bid to settle some of those larger concerns. The incident itself has so far seen one man arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter after a search was called off by the HM Coast Guard for a sailor aboard the cargo ship, now missing and presumed tragically to be dead. The remaining 36 crew members from across the two vessels are accounted for, with one sustaining injuries that were treated at the scene. The incident has, of course, been the focus of much local and national attention since the collision occurred on Monday, as news outlets from across the country have scrabbled to piece together the whole picture, and wildlife charities across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire have been on standby to respond to rising fears of serious environmental impact. The reason being is that the oil tanker involved in the collision was the MV Stena Immaculate, a short-term US chartered vessel carrying some 20,000 tons of jet fuel for the US Navy. Reports yesterday raised fears that the cargo ship, the Solong, owned by the Hamburg-based maritime business Ernst Russ, was transporting at the time some 15 containers of the toxic chemical sodium cyanide. That business, Ernst Russ, has since released a statement to temper those concerns, confirming that this was in fact not the case. The cargo ship was not in fact carrying such a substance. Add to that, reports today suggest that while officials are still working to get an exact picture on how much of the 20,000 tons of jet fuel actually spilled into the North Sea, hopes have been raised that much of it has simply been burned off in the resultant fires aboard the vessel and evaporated from the surface of the water. The official line from government over the matter, one that has now been escalated to a criminal investigation over the suspected gross negligence of the cargo shipmaster, is that things look optimistic for avoiding what some had feared, an environmental catastrophe. Whilst charred and burnt out from their raging fires, the two vessels, according to the latest assessments, look likely to remain afloat, meaning that they can feasibly be towed out of the water. The Labour government's Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, has said she and other government officials will continue to closely monitor the situation with regular updates on any potential environmental impacts, of which it is feared there could be many. For a start, there's the jet fuel itself. Reports suggest that this is just one container of the 20,000 tons of jet fuel that has entered the water. This is awaiting official verification, but given the nature of this type of fuel, one container could still be a disaster for local marine life. Speaking to The Guardian this week, Dr. Simon Boxall, an academic in oceanography at the University of Southampton, has explained that Jet A1 fuel, the type carried by the oil tanker in this incident, has a much higher toxicity than crude oil, and that the impact of that on life in the oceans could be devastating. Specialist pollution control vessels from Germany and Norway arrived at the scene on Tuesday to try to measure the scale of the spillage and contain any toxins. The success of this endeavour is yet to be measured. Meanwhile, experts suggest that the health and environmental effects of the spillage will be both short and long-term, local and regional, harmful not only to local wildlife and beaches and the livelihoods that rely on them, but with the potential to move up the food chain from fish to birds to people. All of this is made worse when we consider just where the incident has taken place, because right next door to the ship's raging fires, bellows of smoke, and potential for 20,000 tons of oil spill are two of the North Sea's most critical marine protected areas. According to publicly available data, the collision is likely to have occurred within or very near to the Holderness Offshore Marine Conservation Zone and the Southern North Sea Special Area of Conservation, both of them homes to vulnerable marine life. The Southern North Sea is currently a protected habitat for harbour porpoises, while the Holderness Offshore Marine Conservation Zone is protected due to the presence of ocean quahogs alongside protected habitats and geology. While there are many variables still left to learn of this incident, the message from the environmental sector has been clear that wherever big oil goes, spills and damage to the environment follow quickly behind. For many, the event rings of memories of the Deepwater Horizon BP oil spill of 8 years ago, which has a massive impact on marine life, including bottlenose dolphins to this day displaying signs of a lung disease as a result. For Hugo Tagholm, Executive Director of Oceana UK, the message now is evident that we simply cannot afford to turn a blind eye to the destruction this industry causes. Ending the era of big oil, he adds, and building a future powered by clean renewable energy is paramount for UK seas, for our communities and for our future. The ecosystem surrounding the North Sea is already a precarious place. Many seabird populations have been facing long-term declines, hit hard by avian flu, and yet to see a positive recovery. Meanwhile, there's still a question mark over the restriction of fishing for sand eels, combined with pressure from developers over things such as offshore wind farming, and Richard Barnard, area manager for the RSPB, admits that a potential pollution incident is the last thing these birds need. It could be some time before we get a full scale of the impact this incident will have on the marine environment. Meanwhile, authorities are still working to piece together how such an incident could occur in the first place. Maritime experts have suggested human error was likely to have played a significant role here, but that right now a technical mishap or oversight could not be ruled out. Following inquiries undertaken by Humberside Police, a 59-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter in connection with the collision. The cargo ship's owner, Ernst Russ, confirmed, adding that both the master and the entire team are actively assisting in investigations. 2 days on from the incident, an event that in all took no more than 30 minutes between the point of collision and full evacuation, the picture is beginning to settle somewhat. Attention now will be turned to understanding where the blame lies, and, of course, what this is going to cost in cleanup and repairs. Overshadowing all this, however, is the matter that the full extent of the environmental cost just won't be fully understood until a clear assessment is made. An assessment into how much oil was leaked, which chemicals did enter the water, and how much was contained after the spill. To learn more about this story and other stories on events in the North Sea, head to the Oceanographic Newsroom. This has been the Ocean News Podcast. I've been Rob Hutchins. Thank you for listening.